What is up, everyone? Welcome to the next lesson in the concurrency chapter in the full-time GoDev program. In this course, this lesson, we are going to take a closer look at how we can control channels, how we can basically implement some kind of a control flow to make things more organically and to more smooth, and basically to control all these channels and messages. And instead of basically doing this more theoretically, we are going to check out a pattern that I'm using all the time. I mentioned this in the previous video, and if you understand this pattern, you can do a lot. I swear to God, you can use that pattern to basically do almost all of your stuff. So what we're gonna do is, first of all, I'm gonna make a server here, right? And of course, it's not gonna be a real server. It's gonna be something, right? Some kind of a server. Although it basically is a building block of a real server that I'm using all the time. Because what is a server? A server is just something that can serve things, that can handle things, that just runs as a daemon somewhere, right? It does not need to be HTTP server or something. It could be any kind of server implementation, right? So the server is going to be a structure, right? And this server is going to have a function, right? And we're going to say, for example, as server, we're going to say start, right? And if we start a server, we are going to empty println, and we're going to say server starting or run or starting. It is what it is. It's fine. Starting, just like that. We're also going to make another function. Let me copy this thing. And I'm going to say server loop. And we're going to make a for loop here, right? And we also, and that's the first thing in our control structure for channels, we're also going to say for select. Like this, right? And why is that? It's basically a for loop, and it's going to continuously for looping, do for loop stuff, doing for loop shenanigans. But each time it loops, it's going to do a select statement. And this select statement is going to do a couple of things, right? So what are we going to do? We are going to have in our server, we're going to have a quit channel, right? And that's going to be a channel. And this is very important. It sounds a bit complex, but it isn't. You could say a channel bool, for example, right? Where you could just get true or false. But a bool will take in 1 byte, or actually 2 bytes, I think. But in Golang, it's going to be 1 byte because it's going to be optimizing it. But if we want to make this 0 bytes, what we could do is we could make a channel of an empty struct. It's a trick, right? And I'm using these empty struct tricks for channels that just need to communicate some kind of a binary expression, right? Be true or false, 1 or 0, something like that, right? And we're going to use that channel to notify the server that we want to quit, right? And on the other side, we're going to have a message channel, which, we covered already in the previous previous lesson, by the way. So we're going to say message is going to be a channel of strings, right? A channel of string. So first of all, what we're going to do is always a good practice is constructor server, and we always make our constructor new struct. We always make our constructor like new, right? If you have a server structure that we want to initialize, we're going to say new server. It could be new foo, new player, new book, new to-do list, new server in this case, right? And what we're going to say is this new server is going to return a pointer to a server, right? It does not need to be a pointer, but I'm making it a pointer. So I'm going to allocate this on the heap. We're going to make a new server, and we're going to return and server. You already should know this syntax. And then we're going to say that the quit channel is going to be make me a channel of a structure, an empty structure. And then we're also going to say that the message channel is going to be a channel, but that's going to be a channel of strings, right? A channel of string, by the way. That's what's going to happen. We need to initialize these channels, because otherwise we're going to have some problems, right? So that's that. So basically, we have our loop here, and we're going to call loop here. We're going to say, but we're going to call our loop in an other Go routine. Well, we have two options, and I'm going to show them. Let's do not run the loop in another Go routine. Let's just say s.loop, right? So we're going to say the server is starting, and then we're going to say a server loop, which basically will block here, right? Right now this will block. Why? Because we have a for loop that runs till forever, right? So we can say here select, let me center this, and we can select, and the select is specifically for channels, right? So you could basically select what happens with all these channels. So the first thing we're going to say case s dot quit channel, right? So you're going to say s dot quit channel. There is no need to assign this, right? There is no need to say, for example, OK is going to be as quit channel. There is no need to be, because we know that this quit channel is just a signal to quit. It's a one-off signal. That's why we made it an empty struct. So we're going to say case as quit channel. And we're going to do some stuff here. Do some stuff when we need to quit, right? And we're also going to say case s dot message channel, right? But in this case, we want to actually have the message that's being sent over that message channel. We want to handle that. So in this case, we're going to say that the message the message from, if somebody sends to this message channel, we're going to handle the message and we're going to get the message here. It's basically the same syntax we used in the previous lesson, right? So, and then we're going to say here, we're going to copy this stuff, and we are going to say do some stuff when we have a message, right? So let me do this real quick. Underscore, if you do underscore equals stuff, it basically ignores that value, but that also makes sure that the compiler is not complaining, right? Because if I delete this, you're going to see that the compiler is telling me message variable of type string is not used. It's true, because we don't use this. So what we're going to say, we're going to use it by basically throwing it away in this case, just for the compiler stuff. So what's going to happen in this loop thing, right? So each time we start a server, we're going to loop, it's going to block, and it's basically going to continuously poll. Basically, it's going to continuously check, do we received a message quit channel? No. Okay. Do we have a message? Do we have a message channel? Is somebody sending us messages through our message channel? No. Okay. Next loop. Do we have a quit signal? No. Do we have a message received? No. Next loop, right? Do we have a quit signal? Yes. Okay. Then I need to do some quit stuff. Do we have a message received? Yes. Okay. Then we're going to handle that message, right? Very easy, very cool to do, very simple to set up. So basically what we're going to say is we're going to make another function as, and you could already see why this can come handy if you're making service, right? So we're going to say as server, we're going to say handle a message, right? And this message is going to be a string. And the only thing we're going to do is fmt println, and we're going to say we received a message. Yes, and the message is going to be message, just like that. Okay, this is bad. Boom. Of course, a comma here. Boom. Right? So each time we are going to get a message, we are going to say as handle message. And then we're going to put a message inside of that. Simple. So basically, what are we going to do when we need to quit? Well, that's something we're going to cover later on. First of all, we're going to test this message stuff here, right? So we are in main here. And the first thing we're going to do in main is we're going to say that our server is going to be a new server, right? So we have a new server, and then we're going to say server, and we're going to call start, right? That's what we're going to do, right? And then we're going to basically run this, go run main.go. And now we're going to get a problem because it's going to say that all Go routines are asleep. And why is that? That's because nobody is sending us a quit channel and nobody is sending us a message channel. So it's basically the Go compiler knows that this program will never do something and it's going to notify you, right? So how can we solve that? We can solve that a couple things, but one of the easiest way to do is basically say a default statement, right? Because it's basically, what is going to happen is that it's basically going to block and wait on these channels, right? In this case. And by the way, our message channel here, what we're going to do is basically, we are going to buffer this message channel, right? And we're going to say, for example, 128, right? Because if you're receiving messages, you're probably going to receive multiple messages. So good practice to buffer your channel. In case of this quit channel, it doesn't really matter because we're just going to send one message and it cannot block or program if we use it correctly, right? All right, so that's that. So basically what we do is we set a default statement, just like a normal switch statement. We can have a default, and that basically say, if we do not receive a quit channel, if we do not receive a message, then we're just going to say default and we do nothing, right? We just do simply nothing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that should actually make this run. You see, now it's running, the server is starting, and the server is keep looping. It's serving, it's waiting for input, right? It's like a server somewhere. It's serving and waiting for things to do. So what are we going to do here? Well, we are going to, when we have a server here, basically what we're going to say is going to center this a little bit. So this is blocking, right? Why is this blocking? Start is blocking because this loop is here blocking, right? So let's say we want to do stuff after server start. What we could do a couple things. We could say, or we basically say go server start, right? And then we run our program, and you can see that the server is probably starting, but the programming exited because we exited faster than the server could start, because this is going to schedule another go routine, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to send some messages, right? So we could make a function. Two things we could do. We could basically say server dot message channel and pipe in a message, for example, hey, do this, for example. That's something we can do, but we could also make a nice function for that, right? We could say, for example, func as server send message string, and then we're just going to say as, what's going on here, as dot message channel, and we're going to pipe in this message inside of this message channel. And now instead of doing it like here, we could basically say server.sendMessage, and we're going to say, hey, do this. Just like that, right? So the next thing, what we need to do is basically, if we send this channel a message, we're also going to directly here exit our program. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a simple thing to just let our program halt for a bit so we can see some output. So we're going to say time sleep times, I don't know, time sleep time dot second, by the way. Let's sleep for 5 seconds so we can actually see something happens. Because if we don't sleep here, we're going to exit the program, and because everything happens concurrently, everything happens asynchronously, we're not going to see anything, but the program is already exited. And now we're just going to wait for 5 seconds so the server can actually respond, basically, right? If that makes any sense. So we're going to run this, boom. And then we start the server, we send this a message here, and then the server is telling us we received the message. And the message is, hey, do this, right? It's pretty fine. It's pretty cool because we are calling our handle message here, right? And what we could do basically is we could make a for loop. For example, for y equals 0, y smaller than, for example, 100 messages, y plus plus, and then we're going to say, you're going to paste it in here. We're going to send a message, and the message is going to be, what's going on here? The message is going to be fmt s printf, and we're going to say handle this number, and the number is going to be y, right? And if we right now going to boot up our server once again, boom, you could see that we're handling all these messages, right? We are mimicking all messages. Could be from different users, whatever, right? So that's fine. That's how we can handle messages. You see, it's very simple. You send a message to the server, which is basically you write this message into the server channel, and thanks to our server loop here, it's going to basically select, in case we receive the message here, we're going to handle the message, and in this case, we're just going to print it out. This is very simple, a very common pattern I'm using all the time. Right, now the quit channel, very important here. So, because there's a little caveat here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to basically start the server, right? Just like this, right? And we're going to do not start it in a go routine, which basically means that we are going to block on server start, right? Server is starting, pretty fine. So what we're going to do is we are going, because if we write code here, will not work, right? Will not work. And why will it not work? Because we are blocking here on service start. Makes sense? So what we're going to do is we're going to make here a gofunc. A gofunc, which is basically a function that spins up in another go routine. And we are going to sleep here. Time sleep time seconds times 5. It's basically mean sleep 5 seconds. So it's going to be a function. And you're going to spawn that function into another go routine, which basically means it's non-blocking. So it's going to directly start the server. But after 5 seconds, this function can do some stuff. So we're going to say server.quit. Of course, we don't have a quit function yet, so we're going to implement that. So we're going to say here, func as server. We're going to say quit. And we are going to say close as quit channel, right? The cool stuff is that if we say close, this will also be triggered, right? So we're going to close the quit channel, or we could also do something like this. As quit channel is going to be an empty struct. That's something what we could do also, right? It depends. So you could do a close as quit channel here, or you do this empty struct, right? Let's do this empty struct thing, right? So we're going to notify the server with an empty struct that takes no memory that we're going to quit. So in case so that basically means that this case statement is going to get triggered. So what we could do is basically say break, right? We could say break. And then we could print out why. We could also return. That's true, but I'm going to show you something. We're going to say here fmt println server is shutting down, for example, gracefully, right? Boom. So let's try that, right? So we basically have a for loop, we have a select loop. In case we have a quit channel, we're going to break, and that should probably break this whole for loop, right? So let's see if that works. So we're going to sleep for 5 seconds, and then we're going to quit the server, right? So let's do that. So we're going to run, we're going to wait a couple of seconds. And nothing is happening. What is going on? Wait, I think what we should do is... I know what's going on. Wait, we're going to server quit here, and then it should be here. Case quit channel. So the stuff is actually... Let's print out here, because that's why we actually println quitting server. Right. Boom. So we need to wait. It should actually trigger that function. Otherwise, I made a big mistake. Yeah, you see, quitting server, but nothing happens. The server is still hanging, right? And that's pretty normal. And I'm going to show you why. Because you need to understand that this for and select loop are basically being treated as two different loops. Not loops, but you can break a select. And if you break a select, you do not break the for loop. If you break the select here, right, you're basically going to spin all the time in this for loop. So how can we solve that? In Golang, you have the concept of naming your loops. So we're going to say loop here. Actually, this may be confusing for you guys. We're going to say main loop, right? We're going to say main loop, which basically declares the main loop of the for. Is basically the for loop. We're going to call our for loop the main loop. And in case we want to quit, we are not going to break just the select statement. We are going to break the main loop, right? And if we do that again, server is starting. Boom. Quitting the server, server is shutting down gracefully, and our program terminated. Isn't that amazing? Right? So that's a thing you need to be aware of, that if you break select statements, that, if you break select statements, you're not going to break the for loop, but only the select statement. Very important, right? And because right now we have Golang can actually know, I think, that we have a good way to close our shenanigans to stop our server. I think we could actually remove the default stuff right now. Let me see. Yeah, it's working pretty fine. So we can delete the default because there is a way that we are stopping the server, and Golang knows that. And now you can delete the default statement because we are handling we are doing some stuff, right? The program will not block forever in this case, right? So that's basically the concept that I'm basically always use this pattern. It's a very common pattern. I like it and I love it. So what did we learn actually? Well, we learned the most important thing is basically this for select, right? And you could have multiple channels, right? You could have multiple channels where you're basically selecting over, right? Different cases could be 100% possible, right? But the main thing to take away also is how you could structure things, how you could wrap your channels into a struct, and how to basically wrap your channel behavior inside of functions and all that stuff, and how it could work, right? That's the stuff. That's the cool thing here. Is there something else I want to talk to you? I want to say to you, I don't think so. I think this is basically a very nice example for you to start experimenting with service by with channels and go routines, and how to handle these different select statements, and how to basically have a nice flow, a nice control flow in your applications by using channels. Right, cool. So that's it for this, and I'll see you in the next video.